Not much we can do. Everything is just disgusting. Our parking lot project with storage containers is waiting on gravel, but it's too much.
People knew something was wrong with Big Chief years before he disappeared from Street Outlaws. The evidence was sitting in plain sight across multiple seasons of the show, but most of us dismissed every single piece of it. Who was Justin Shearer before the show found him? And how did a kid watching races from the side of the road end up at the center of all of this? Join us as we find out what they tried to warn us about Big Chief. The man before the cameras. Justin Shearer was born in Louisville, Kentucky on December 9, 1980. His father died when he was young, and his mother raised him on her own while working at a hospital. When he was 9 years old, the family relocated to Oklahoma City, and street racing got hold of him almost immediately. He was not old enough to compete. He would ride his bicycle out to spots where older drivers gathered and watch the races from the side of the road. He paid attention to how cars were set up, how drivers responded under pressure at the line, and what separated the ones who kept winning from the ones who kept losing. By the time he was 10, he had already gotten behind a wheel. He bought his first serious car as a teenager, a 1972 Pontiac Le Mans, and began working on it. He did not have money for the best parts, so he learned to get more out of what he had. He adjusted the car continuously between races, and each time out, he came back with a better understanding of what it needed. That car eventually earned the nickname The Crow and became the vehicle most associated with his early racing identity in Oklahoma City. By 2010, he was part of a project called Serotonin, which placed him squarely inside the city's serious underground racing community. He was not a peripheral figure by that point. He had put in years of work, built real relationships with other racers, and established a reputation for being competitive, consistent, and knowledgeable about the mechanical side of the sport. When Discovery Channel approached the Oklahoma City racing scene and Street Outlaws launched in June 2013, Big Chief was the natural center of it. He had not become well known because of the show. The show found someone who was already well known and pointed a camera at him. His role on the series reflected what he had already been doing in the community, organizing competition through a ranking system called the Top 10 List, which determined who raced whom and who held the most respected position in the city's street hierarchy. He built Midwest street cars into a real business alongside Sean Ellington, better known as Murder Nova, a performance shop that grew into a merchandise brand with a following well beyond Oklahoma. He and Sean also co-hosted a podcast called The Chief and Sean Show, which gave both men a platform to talk about racing outside of what the show's editing allowed. For the first few seasons of Street Outlaws, Big Chief was exactly what the show presented him as: a knowledgeable, competitive racer who had earned his standing in a community that did not hand respect to anyone. His background was straightforward to follow. He had started with very little, learned everything through direct experience, and built something substantial over time. That story was easy for a wide audience to follow, and Street Outlaws grew into one of Discovery's most watched motorsports series on the back of it. But some of the people around him, people who had known him long before Discovery Channel arrived, were watching how things developed on screen and starting to have a different read on the situation. So how did the man who was closest to Big Chief start signaling that something was off? People inside the circle started moving. Sean Ellington was not a supporting character in Big Chief's story. Before Street Outlaws existed, Sean had already built a genuine reputation in Oklahoma's underground racing scene on his own. His car, a 1969 Chevy Nova running a twin-turbo setup, all black, low and fast, became one of the most recognized vehicles in that world. He held the title of King of the Streets in Oklahoma City for 3 consecutive years before being unseated by Daddy Dave. He was Big Chief's equal as a competitor and his closest collaborator off the track. When the show launched, their dynamic was one of the strongest elements of the early seasons. They raced in the same circles, worked in the same shop, and the relationship between them felt like the real foundation of the whole Oklahoma City crew. Fans who followed the show closely valued that friendship as much as they valued the racing itself. Somewhere between the earlier seasons and the later ones, that changed. The two men stopped appearing together in interviews. The easy, natural energy between them on race nights was replaced by something more distant. Sean never made a public statement explaining it. He did not go on record pointing fingers or describing a specific falling out. But the shift in how they interacted, or stopped interacting, was visible enough that fans started asking the same question across Reddit, YouTube comments, and Facebook groups dedicated to the show. Why did Sean and Big Chief no longer act like the people they had been in the earlier seasons? Some argued it was nothing. Two people in a busy industry drifting toward different schedules. But Sean had never been someone who stayed quiet when something bothered him, and his silence on this specific subject was consistent and total. In 2015, Big Chief was involved in a serious on-set crash that destroyed the Crow. He rebuilt the car and came back to compete. Longtime viewers watching those post-crash episodes noticed the cast dynamic felt different, though none of the racers involved ever stated publicly what had shifted or why. What was stated publicly and clearly came from James Goad, known on the show as Reaper. Goad was not known for holding back when he had a problem with something, and in his case, he went on record with specific allegations. He said Big Chief had accumulated too much control over how the show operated behind the scenes. He claimed that matchups were being influenced, that the list did not move purely on race results, and that certain racers received better treatment based on their relationship with Big Chief rather than their performance on the track. Ryan Martin, who was rising quickly as a competitor during this period, said considerably less. He kept his distance without explaining it in detail. Fans tracking the shift in how Martin and Big Chief interacted noticed the change, but Martin was careful not to turn it into a public dispute. Outside the cast, several YouTube creators who had been following Street Outlaws in detail began publishing their own analysis. These were people who watched every episode, tracked list movements, and compared race results to how those results were presented on screen. Several of them reached similar conclusions: that the show appeared to be managed in a way that kept certain outcomes intact, and that Big Chief appeared to sit at the center of that management. The videos were there with forum threads that were active. The broader audience that tuned in each week for the racing largely did not find them, or did not go looking. So while the cast was pulling apart on screen, what was going on in Justin Shearer's life away from the cameras? What was happening off the track? Justin Shearer met Alicia when he was 18 years old and working as an attendant at a gas station. She came in, and that was the beginning of what became a long relationship. They married in 2006, after years of being together through the period when he was building his reputation in Oklahoma City's street racing scene before any cameras were involved. They had two sons, Civil and Corbin. For a significant portion of the show's run, the Shearer family appeared stable, and fans who followed Big Chief's personal life alongside his racing career saw the marriage as a grounding element in a world that did not always look settled. Jackie Brosh was already a known figure in drag racing before she became connected to Big Chief publicly. She had built her own standing in the community and was respected as a competitor in her own right. As she began appearing in spaces connected to Justin Shearer, at events, in shared footage, in contexts that went beyond casual professional overlap, fans started paying close attention. The timeline of when the relationship between Big Chief and Jackie began relative to when the marriage to Alicia ended has been a point of debate. Big Chief stayed quiet on the specifics for an extended period, and Alicia has not made detailed public statements about the circumstances of the separation. Because neither party gave a clear account, the version that spread most widely was built largely on speculation. Some fans believed the relationship with Jackie predated the divorce. Others argued there was no basis for that conclusion. Justin and Alicia divorced in 2017 after almost 11 years of marriage, and his relationship with Jackie became public after that. When he confirmed the relationship, the reaction from the fan base was sharply divided. A portion of the audience that had followed him since the early seasons felt that the image he had projected, someone grounded, loyal, straight-talking, did not match the way things had unfolded. That perception took a real toll on how some of those viewers engaged with him going forward. Others pushed back, arguing that the details of a marriage ending were private, that Jackie had done nothing wrong, and that judging him based on incomplete information was unfair. Jackie largely did not respond to the criticism publicly. She continued racing, continued appearing in content connected to Justin, and maintained a low profile on the controversy specifically. She became a target for a portion of the fan base regardless, and the criticism directed at her was disproportionate, given that the full circumstances were never publicly established. During this period, his on-screen presence changed in ways that viewers who had followed him since the early seasons picked up on clearly. He was still competitive. His skill behind the wheel had not diminished, but the ease and directness that had characterized his earlier appearances were less present. He smiled less during interviews. He was quieter in settings that had previously brought out a more open version of him. Whether that was connected to the personal pressure he was under or to something else in his situation at the time was never stated by him directly. The fan base split that followed the divorce, and the relationship announcement did not fully heal. Pages dedicated to the show are divided. Viewers who had been consistent supporters walked away. The version of Big Chief that a significant part of the audience had invested in was harder to hold on to after the details of his personal life surfaced publicly. While the fan base was splitting over his personal life, the production was heading toward a decision that would remove him from the show entirely. So what actually happened when Street Outlaws, America's List came together? And why was Big Chief not on it? The break, the show, and the exit. Street Outlaws. America's List was framed as the largest version of the franchise to that point, a national competition bringing together the fastest street racers from across the country. Big Chief had been on the show since its very first episode. He had helped establish the list concept that the entire franchise was built around. He had posted on Instagram ahead of the new season in ways that suggested he was preparing to be part of it. When the show aired, and he was not in it, and his name was not mentioned, the response from longtime fans was immediate. No announcement had been made ahead of time. There was no episode addressing his departure, no acknowledgement from the show of the years he had spent as its central figure. He was simply absent, and the production moved forward without him, as though the transition required no explanation. The cast members who spoke about it when asked kept their responses brief. One suggested he needed a break. Another said the decision deserved respect. None of them went into detail, and the restraint with which they handled questions about it was noted by fans who felt the situation warranted more than short answers. Rumors circulated during this period that a confrontation involving another racer called Precious and separately involving Jackie had contributed to his exit from America's List specifically. Big Chief addressed those rumors directly and was clear that they were not the reason he left. Across multiple videos and interviews, his stated reason was consistent. The issue was with production rules, specifically the policy determining which racers qualified to participate in the competition. The format involved pre-season selections, and his position was that the process was not reflecting real street racing. Some racers who should have been included were not, and he was not willing to participate in something he felt was not being run fairly. He also said the direction the show had been taking, with increasing emphasis on drama and entertainment value over authentic racing, had been building as a point of tension for some time. He was clear that he left by choice. He did not claim to have been removed or pushed out. His account matched what independent YouTube creators had been documenting for a couple of years before his exit: that the competitive structure appeared managed, that results were shaped by factors outside of race performance, and that the show had become more production than documentation. The absence of any tribute or acknowledgement from the show after his exit left a lasting impression on the fans who had been with Street Outlaws from the beginning. 8 years of involvement, a central role in building the franchise's identity, and it ended without the show marking it in any way. Fans who felt that was wrong said so clearly and consistently in the months that followed. So, what did Justin Shearer's life actually look like once the Street Outlaws cameras stopped following him? Where he went and what it showed. After leaving Street Outlaws, Justin Shearer kept racing and kept building cars. He did not step away from the sport itself. What he stepped away from was the television structure around it. And once he was outside that structure, how he presented publicly changed noticeably. His YouTube channel, Midwest Street Cars, became his primary platform. The content he posted there was different in tone from what Street Outlaws had produced around him. He talked about car builds in detail, documented testing sessions, and occasionally addressed the circumstances of his time on the show directly. He spoke about what he felt had been lost in the transition from genuine street racing to television production. He talked through car builds, documented test sessions, and addressed his time on the show in ways he had never done while he was still part of it. It was not a prepared statement, kind of honesty. It was the more unfiltered version that comes out when someone is talking directly to a camera without a production team shaping the edit around them. Jackie Brosh remained a consistent presence in his life and in his content. The controversy that had surrounded the start of their relationship had largely settled by this point. Viewers who followed his channel regularly saw the two of them working on projects together, attending events, and getting on with a life that was still built around cars and racing, but no longer organized around a television schedule. He participated in smaller events and private races during this period, such as cash days, RC car racing events, and daily driver competitions. These were not the large-scale productions that Street Outlaws had become. They were closer to the format in which he had originally built his reputation before the show existed. Several people who attended or followed those events noted that his engagement there looked different from how he had appeared in the later seasons of Street Outlaws. More relaxed, more direct, less managed. In his YouTube content, he returned periodically to the theme of authenticity in street racing. He talked about what the culture had been before television found it, and about the difference between racing because you care about the result and racing because a production schedule requires you to be somewhere. He did not frame these observations as attacks on the show specifically, but the context was clear enough that viewers who had followed his exit understood what he was referring to. He made no formal announcement about returning to any version of Street Outlaws, and no formal announcement about being done with it permanently. His public statements on the subject have been the same as the position he laid out when he explained his exit, that his objection had been to a specific set of conditions on that show. Whether people took that at face value or saw it as a version of events shaped to suit him after the fact was something each viewer had to decide on their own, based on everything they had seen over the years. Big Chief said he walked away because the show stopped reflecting real street racing. Do you think he was right about where it was headed? Reaper, Murder Nova, and Outside Creators were all pointing at the same problems with how Street Outlaws was being run. Did you ever notice? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.